Hey Rick, how are we, my friend?
What is up, Ian? I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. As I said to you off the podcast, I thought I'd just get it in there in case anyone's wondering why I look like a tomato. It's because I've just come back from the UK where it's bloody freezing and I needed a dose of vitamin D. So I went to the beach yesterday and unfortunately I fell asleep, hence why I look like this. So I thought I'd just
Yeah,
get it in there.
listen, I love it, man. I'm like I say, I'm in Canada. I'm in Toronto. Toronto is one of the better places in Canada to be, like winter wise, snow wise, and all that stuff. But it is snowing like crazy right now, so I'm jealous. I wish I was a
Oh,
tomato with you.
there we go. There we go. All right, mate. So, yeah, just thought that before we get into it and just understand a little bit about you, what made the man in front of me today, so really intrigued to hear. I know you've got a bit of an eclectic kind of life, really. So, I would like
Spread out,
to
yeah.
understand. Yeah, yeah. What made you from, from a child to the man you are today? Just, give us a bit of an overview of who you are,
Sure.
Rick.
Yeah, I'll try and do that as briefly as humanly possible while hitting the key points. I was born in Montreal in 1981. So Zennial or geriatric millennial, as they now say. I love that the internet changed the term to use the word geriatric for me. That's great.
Oh,
Love
there we
that.
go.
Um, but yeah, geriatric millennial. So Montreal at the time had just gone through its first referendum to try to leave Canada. So I didn't really know that. Obviously, it was 1980, so a few months before I was born. Montreal was like one of the most vibrant city in Canada, one of the most in North America. So like lots of opportunity. It was a great place to be. I hear before I was born, and I was born right after a mass exodus of business, political unrest. So I was born into a very different Montreal, right, which was kind of like empty. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of stuff boarded up, no progress, no nothing. A lot of animosity between English and French speakers. My parents, my dad is Italian, was Italian. He's no longer with us, but was Italian. Born and raised in Calabria, so in Gioiosa Ionica, which is a small port town. He came over to North America when he was 6 years old. Um, and he was also born into a total unrest type situation because it was the aftermath of World War II. That's where, I guess it was the British had come in and sort of leveled everything off. So it was chaos and lawlessness. He doesn't remember it, but man, did he have a negative association to Italy. Didn't like to speak Italian. Didn't want me to learn Italian. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Or my sister. Yeah. So language, again, a big part of it, right? There's the English French kind of war going on. There's my dad, who's Italian from Italy. Italian's his first language. He only spoke to his parents in Italian. He'd pick up the phone and speak Italian off to the people. But to us, no, we're English. We speak English here. That's what we do. My mom her family mostly identifies as Quebecois, meaning like from French from Quebec, French Canadian. Um, but she's half Italian, but they've been there so long they speak French mostly. So her first language was French. So neither of my parents, their first language was English. But
Wow.
so when she picked up a phone, she was always talking French to her cousin, her mom, or like, everybody. But to my sister and I, they decided we were English speak. What do you mean we're English? We speak English. Like, that's just a decision they made. So they sent my sister and I to English school. Not a lot of discussion around how weird and complicated that is. So I just grew
Wow.
up in this environment where like I couldn't really communicate really well with my cousins or like, you know what I mean? Because my French was awful because all my friends spoke English, and I was going to school with people who were just kind of like I can swear on this podcast, right? You can swear on this
Yo,
podcast.
fill your boots. Go for it.
Okay, good. So they were just kind of like fucking French people, fucking French peppers is what they used to call them. Like if I saw French people, I'd beat the shit out of them. So obviously, I'm not gonna tell people that I'm half French. Like a lot of my family are French speaking, even though they're not like French, right? So I'm just kind of like, okay, so I'm hiding my French. I'm getting worse at French on purpose in school because I want to fit in, and it's such so much animosity toward French people. So it's a weird dynamic. Um, and then just on the home life front, my dad. So things were great when I was young to me. I thought they were great. They were normal. It's a normal house. Both parents, dad was working, went to school. The French English thing was not really on my radar, right? Some animosity with the kids and stuff like that in schoolyards, but nothing too huge. My grandfather on my mom's side, who is a one-armed accidental dismemberment insurance salesman. I'll let
What?
that sink in for a second. He's a man who had one arm and he sold dismemberment insurance and made a killing.
Wow.
If
He was
you're
the
going
right
to
man for
buy
the job.
yeah, right? Like, what a brilliant thing to talk about, making lemonade out of lemons. If you're gonna want to get rich, and he had a terrible accident when he was young in a factory, and he was a talker, and he flipped it around and was able to make a killing and be like a number one insurance sales rep. Selling insurance. Of course you're going to buy insurance from a guy who's just kind of like, trust me, when I was young, I never thought I needed this shit, right? Like, so
Yeah.
kind of a genius, but unfortunately, from his age group and whatever else, didn't really address his emotions about what it would have been like to have been disfigured that way or anything like that. Just drank it all. So unfortunately, not by today's standards, we would have called him an alcoholic, full stop. Became really tough to live with for my grandmother. So she came to stay with us for a long while. A lot of the parental attention was to that situation. My grandmother was awesome, but a very big, fiery French-Italian personality to be around. And so there was a lot of tiptoeing. No one was saying that my grandfather was an alcoholic, but it was like, don't talk to him if he calls on the phone after a certain time, right? As a kid, like, you weren't allowed to even talk to him on the phone. So he dies of cirrhosis of the liver when I'm maybe 8-9 years old. Shortly thereafter, my mother's brother, who was like my big brother, like we were super close, he gets hit by a car as a pedestrian, totally shatters his leg. So he's now, and he was sort of had just started taking the charge of taking care of his mom, my grandmother. So she's over with him now. So we're really, I would say, almost unhealthily entwined, right? Like, we're there all the time with he's supposed to be taking care of my grandmother, but she's the one taking care of him because he's just got his leg bashed, almost amputated, so he can't really walk anymore. So his life's now taking a big turn. He's now living with his mother, but she's taking care of him. Like, just really changed where he was at. If a guy was working a couple jobs, he was also a musician. It's part of where I get that from, right? Played in bands and stuff. All that's gone. And my dad, for all intents and purposes, was going through a major depression. Lost his work, lost his job, like a lot of people did in Montreal at the time. So warehouse, pulled out, went to another city, another province, right? Because of the political stuff, probably fallout from it anyway. So now we have no money coming in. So we have no money coming in. We have my dad who's just depressed, trying to start his own business, but just he's a lovely guy. Everybody loved him, but he was happy and wonderful to everybody else. No one really knew he was going through the depression. But at home, he would just sit and watch TV and mope and just smoke cigarette after cigarette and fill an ashtray. Like, my job secretly was to sort of clean up the evidence that he's just going through this huge depression, right?
Is that's a really important point to touch on there, isn't it? As, talking about men just going through depression and mental health issues and
Yeah.
just trying to troop on, and it's almost I don't know, in the past, not really looked at. It was something. It's coming more to the forefront now, where we're kind of saying, hey, we're all struggling. But back then, I think it was less spoken about. Would you
100%.
agree? Yeah.
I would definitely agree, and certainly, Italians are among various cultures globally who, have this like vision of manhood that's very like, you don't talk about your feelings. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not something that's done. It's not worth it. Like, you just man up and you work, you do what you have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's that man up thing, because I went back to the UK recently, and I'm sure we'll touch on various things in this conversation today. But I was speaking to one guy, and he kind of he was challenging me in a way of that sometimes he feels a bit about a small town mentality. I've left my town and I've gone away, and there was a guy there in a kind of non-confrontational way, but almost challenging. I believe that vulnerability is a superpower, and to share is very important, and to
Yes.
share, our struggles and just get it out there. And he was kind of, and his line was, well, if we share it, then we feel it more. And I think sometimes it's just get on with it. And I was like, well, that 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 can actually be okay sometimes. I think just oversharing and focusing on the problem, saying, "Oh shit, I
Right.
feel like this," brings it more into reality, and it's at your forefront sometimes. But as I said to him, I said, "You've got to, with the right person, you've got to be able to release." You've got to be able to share, and then you can get cracking with maybe a strategy, an action plan to get yourself out of it. And yes, you don't want to speak about it all day, every day, but I think just having that confidant or someone you can share to, like, in that position there, if he would have had the thing to say, hey, I feel like this, someone goes, oh, so do I. It can feel like
Right.
that common release. And then you can go,
Totally.
right, now what are we going to do about this now? What did you do? Oh, well, I did this. Okay, let's try something.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think though that I was that guy. Like I think I thought of myself when I was younger as being so much more open and modern and whatever else than like my dad or my grandfather. And this is why I've listened to other episodes on this podcast and I love what you do, Ian. I love the whole like good men helping good men kind of thing. And the whole narrative, I think, of defining or thinking about masculinity today in a time when it's sort of very open and changed a lot of ways, and it's very mixed messages. It's very confusing out there, and there is kind of a crisis you read about of men over a certain age not having friends, not having, you know what I mean. There's sort of men taking their own lives, men not living very long. There's a lot out there that's kind of scary, and so I respond to that because it's something that I lived firsthand growing up with, and I consider myself very fortunate that I wised up to this the bit about trying to figure out your feelings and how not talking about it. I had nothing but evidence to show me from whether it was my grandfather, my dad, my uncle, like how not talking about it can really ruin the rest of your life. And yet in my own way I was like, therapy, it's not really worth it. It's just about getting you back to work, right? I was very cynical about it. I was like, oh, psychologists just, they cover it in insurance because like they don't want you to go on disability. They want you to still be a good performer. So it's an insidious way of doing the same thing. They don't really care about you. They don't care about your feelings. Of course, I was misinformed about a lot of that, but you know what I'm saying? That I was still that toxic guy who was like, no, it's not worth it. You just got to figure it out. You got to like think your way through it, right? Um, but of course wrongly. I was in a lot of ways on the same path in a different, more maybe more articulate way, but still not talking about or feeling my feelings about all stuff.
So you touched on the being in and around that kind of, depression and witnessing that. Were you kind of consciously aware, hang on a minute, this isn't good, something's happening there. And were you learning from that? Or were you aware of that early, of what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was not aware. I think it was normalized for me young, and there was just a lot going on. My parents were just like focus on school, so I put all my heart into school, and I did well. For as long as I stayed before dropping out, I did very well. um, but like I was doing my homework in the back of my dad's van. We had a van with like no seats in it or anything in the back, no seat belts. It's a very 80s, 90s thing, right? You're just clunking around back there, the kids,
Yeah.
no windows in the van.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember it
to,
well.
right? To drive to various like hospitals or whatever to see, okay, my uncle's got physiotherapy. He's going to be in there. They put pins in his legs. So I'm doing my homework in this van or like at a hospital. And it declined. A lot of the men in my family have been were in decline, like from that domino effect from my grandfather, who was, died of cirrhosis of the liver, right? Like, so straight up drank himself to death. Onward, every couple of years, there was a new long term crisis. My grandfather on my dad's side was in the hospital, throat cancer from smoking unfiltered cigarettes, like a good old Italian farmer, right? Like his whole life. So now we're going to two different hospitals at some point during the week, like, and I'm just doing my homework there and whatever. And my dad's just like kind of checked out, you know what I mean? Not really looking for work or whatever. But I'm just getting through my days, right? Like I don't know that this is not good at this point. Do you know what I'm saying? That like all the men are in crisis in some way or other. And why is that? And what do they have in common? Not on my radar at all. I'm like, I'm doing well in school. I'm not, this isn't really affecting me. I feel bad for them, but I'm not
Yeah,
part of it.
I find it so interesting because I always talk about humans are so programmable. You know what I mean? You don't know any difference. That's your code. That's what you've been programmed to, and you're in there. You know, nobody's give you a little bit of extra code to consider something else at that time in your life. You know, and unless you discover it yourself through pain, then yeah, okay, interesting. Okay, so what happened kind of next from there?
Next from there, I go to college, CEGEP in Quebec, which is was super fun. I was studying film and arts and stuff like that. I'd been playing music and playing in bands a little locally, and I had access to gear. Like my dad had his own sound equipment rental business that he was trying to launch, albeit doing very little to do anything about it because he was clearly depressed and not seeking help. So there's just all this professional gear just sitting around in the garage. So, you know, as a teenager who was a great student, I wasn't picked on, but I was not like the most popular guy in terms of outside of school, right? Like everyone knew who I was, but nobody was inviting me to these crazy parties or whatever, right? So it ended up being like, hey, this is cool. I can play in bands and record stuff. So it was very social. I got my best friend and I just started a band, played shows like from about age 16 on, made recordings, distributed them independently, and that just kind of set the tone for me for a while. So I went to college, sure, but mostly to meet other musicians. You know, I lived way in the suburbs. This was like a downtown college. I met a lot of cool people I ended up being in bands with and whatever. So I ditched a lot of class, dropped out. I would tell my teachers, I'm going to ditch a lot of these classes, by the way. I'll say
Yeah.
I was such a cocky little guy. I was like, you know, yeah, I'll do the assignments, right? And they're like, you're going to lose 10% for attendance. And I was like, that's fine. I'll be okay. Don't
It'll
worry.
be
Don't
sweet.
worry about me. Yeah, I'll be good.
No, I like what you just discussed there about being in a band, because one of the things I say to people, you know, which can keep the likes of depression away, anxiety, and all of these things, is finding like a passion. And within that passion, I always talk about the 5 pillars of fulfillment. I regularly talk about what volleyball does for me, and you know, it gives me all of the 5 pillars. And now if I was looking at what you would do, I'd imagine when you are doing the work within a band, whether it would be writing, singing, playing, you're going to be in flow. So you're going to be present. So you're going to be, it's almost like that internal work. Noise can go away and your mind's not running a million miles an hour. You spoke there about the, you know, the social connections. You're connecting with people who are actually the same kind of, you know, energy as you. You're talking about stuff that really energizes a human. That, you know, so you're being present, you're doing this, you're in flow, then you're up and about, and you're doing the thing that you love to do. You come away from those things so energized as a human being. It gives you fulfillment juice, and I think in those states, sometimes, especially for that period of time, it's hard for anxiety, depression, and all of those things to live in that higher frequency. And that's the thing I say to people, whether it be whether it be volleyball for me, because in those 2 hours of volleyball, I regularly say, all I'm interested is spiking balls off people's heads. And then
Yeah.
after I've done that, literally for that. So I'm doing that. There's fitness, there's grounding. I'm on the sand and connecting to like-minded, beautiful people who are playing beach volleyball. I come home, I talk to my missus about spiking balls on people's heads. She gets energized by my energy. It helps the relationship, and then I'm energized for work. I know, and I was saying to my missus, I've come back, difficult time in the UK, and I haven't played. And I said, I strategically need to play this week. I've had a few things on. I'm going to play in the next couple of days because I know what it'll do to me. It will really give me a boost of energy.
Yep.
And I just wanted to pause on that because I think people underestimate the value of having a passion, a purpose, a team. No matter what
Yes.
it is, it could be 10 pin bowls, it could be whatever. If you've got a team and a collection of people around you that you do that, it can add like immeasurable impact to your mental health, your mental fitness. Would you agree with that?
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think I love that you keep saying that it gives you energy. I think that was something that wasn't on my radar when I was younger, but that is so important. I think that it's like people think about, and this conversation comes up a lot with people talking to me now that I'm in recruitment. Spoiler alert, I'm in recruitment now. I didn't become a rock star. Didn't become a rock star and internationally famous, FYI. But but yeah, like it comes up a lot, right? With not burning out and whatever. A lot of times people talk about the solutions to those things as being rest, as being doing less. And I'm not saying that there isn't a problem with people being workaholics or works too hard or poor boundaries. That is a problem, yes. But I also agree with you that it's like if you're doing something that has an element that gives you energy, then you're not going to burn out. It doesn't matter how much you rest if what you're doing is depleting you and sapping you of your energy slowly but surely. You're going to burn out. It's not the kind of thing that you can just rest your way out of.
I love that. I love that. So from a work perspective there, um, yeah, you're bringing something to my head. So from the 5 pillars, there's work and life flow. So they're all interconnected. That's basically what we're describing there.
Right.
But from a work and life flow, if you're going through a particularly tough time in work, you've got an arsehole of a boss, project deadlines, everything's on you. What will be happening is your energy will be depleting. And what you've just
Absolutely.
described there is, have you got an activity which is going to bring that energy up,
Yeah,
balance you out? Because we all have tough times within the work environment. We're going to
absolutely.
have tough deadlines. We're going to have new projects, new business one. We're going to have new startups. You need in your life to have a balance. And if playing in a band or playing volleyball or playing lawn bowls, whatever it is, really lifts that energy back up because it gives you that mental clarity for an hour or two. You forget about all the crap and you're getting boosted. It can keep you. I think that's a really good analogy there. Do you believe that then in the workplace, it's vital to find something that gives you that energy outside of that?
I think it's vital to find that energy wherever you can find it. But I think that it also depends on the job. This is, I guess, the next piece of picking it up where I left off before chronologically, even, right? So here I am now, I'm in a band and I'm dropping out of college. That means I need to get a job, right? My parents were pretty clear. Like, you can't just be in a band. That's not life. Like, you're not allowed to do that unless you're a rock star, which I was not. Um, so fine. Then I'm getting day jobs, but I'm treating them as day jobs. So I'm going into it thinking this is the necessary toil I need to suffer through in order to be able to be in a band and make a go of it with my friends in music. At this point, I'm 19 years old, right? Living on my own, working full-time jobs in bands rather seriously. And when I say rather seriously, I mean like started a record label, we're filling out balance sheets, we're negotiating merch deals, getting like price wars between people who manufactured CDs. I'm not a young
Wow.
man, Ian. Manufactured CDs. Remember CDs? A lot of people are like, no, I don't. You do.
Mate, I remember cassettes. You know
Yeah,
what I
right. I mean,
mean?
that's it, right? But so this was the thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Was you're going to run a label, you need a good manufacturer of merch so you could make money. So like you had to have a sticker guy and a t-shirt guy and like CD manufacturing and places to. We were makeshift studio recordings. So here I am, like learning to play instruments, playing them, writing, producing my own records, charging other bands to produce theirs, negotiating deals, blah blah, and working a full-time job.
Wow.
And the full-time day jobs were in sales and things like that, like phone sales and whatever, where you could get an easy job. But it was easy to get. They didn't really care. No one really cared, right? These are like telemarketing places. So like low ambition. Everybody's drunk and high all the time. Everybody's smoking a joint outside. Everybody's drinking before and after work and during work. Um, and then I got the music stuff going, where again, where are you playing? Venues, bars. Some of these places are paying you in beer. I was the stage manager of a venue where they paid me in beer.
Wow.
So, and it's Montreal at a time when it's at a low business low. Montreal is famous for drinking and partying even when things are going well. But as a city, it was like it was at a low.
Sounds
So
sounds like Liverpool.
Well, there you go, right? Like, I mean, this is a thing that perhaps you can let me know if it's the same in Liverpool, but it was normalized for people to have a couple beers at lunch. It was normalized, you didn't really rat on people or think they were an alcoholic if they smelled of beer at work, as long as they were doing their job and not like falling everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, it was not a big deal. And then it was normalized to have beers after work, les 5 à 7, 5 to 7s, as they say in Montreal, like, happy hour or whatever, pretty much 5 days a week. And it was normal to drink every weekend. And so, like, talk about like music gives you energy, sure, but that was not sustainable, obviously. And I did not realize that it wasn't sustainable to be part of these drinking cultures from music and also from sales. So I had it from both ends in a way, right? Like, from both things I was doing. And I was trying to do all of this stuff at once. I got a job doing as a traffic and weather reporter and assistant producer of a radio station, of like a real ass radio station in Montreal, just by
Wow.
being at the right place at the right time at 19. So I was doing that 2 days a week, working the sales job 3 to 4 days a week, day hours. But the radio station was night hours, sometimes overnight. And I was in 3 different bands and I had a record label.
Wow.
So didn't last very long before I got mononucleosis from not sleeping, but I was misdiagnosed by an amazing Quebec doctor at the time. Not that I want to do a send up of Quebec in general. I love the place, but the medical system was not working very well back then. So I just kept doing what I was doing. And in another 3 weeks, they're like, okay, you have mononucleosis induced hepatitis and you're about to have liver failure. You're 19 years old. So you need to stop everything you're doing for 5 weeks, do nothing, stay home, whatever. I didn't have a full-time job at the radio station. These were like part-time jobs, right? So I had no days off paid. So no income now suddenly for 5 weeks, and couldn't do anything. Wasn't allowed to play shows. Wasn't allowed to drink. My first instance of being like, oh, it's a problem that I'm not drinking now. It sucks. It's uncomfortable, right? Like, and I'm just 19. But anyway, all of this to say that it's like I got smashed into living on my own pretty quickly and did a lot of stuff. And I think that I learned a lot of things from that experience that it took me a long time to really process them. But yeah, like, you can, just because you have something that gives you energy, it doesn't give you open license to go and do a whole bunch of stupid crap, right? Like, music was enough and it was exciting enough and it was going well enough that it did give me a lot of energy. The energy to not sleep at night, the energy to think I was superhuman. And managing the stress, my stress coping mechanism was alcohol, which was normal at the time. I don't think anybody would have said, it's not like I was getting wasted to puke everywhere, whatever else. I was just constantly having beers.
Yeah.
And it's like, I never connected. It's like, hey, you remember you had a grandfather who was doing this for a while? It didn't end very well for him. You know what I mean? It was successful and doing well and whatever, right? But was dealing with stuff by drinking a little bit all the time. So anyway, I had already fallen into that pattern and not seen it. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
funny.
I
It's funny that the alcohol thing, as I say, it's very similar to Liverpool. Very much a party place. You get pissed at the weekend. I think society now is taking a look at alcohol in a slightly different way. I think the young people maybe are doing things differently. They do other things, but maybe all the social media addictions and stuff is maybe taking a little bit. It's kind of balancing out some of the alcohol stuff. But yeah, it's such a huge problem. And as you touch on there, if I can come off a certain call. I can get on a call with the likes of yourself or my business partner Hendrik, beautiful human being, love him to death, and we've got a real good energy. We can talk about stuff. I get energized. I can come off that call. I can go onto the call tired. It could be 6 o'clock at night. I get up early, 4 5 a.m. I work. I go to the gym. I do all these things. And by the end of the evening, I'm like, oh, sometimes I'm like, and I can literally go onto the call, oh, and I can come off like, let's go. And I'm energized. And then I can't
yeah.
get to sleep because I'm so energized. But that kind of thing, and as you touched on there, the the singing, the band, the playing, whatever you were doing is enough. As a human, these things were designed in a way that if you find your purpose and passion, that's going to give you all the energy you need for your fulfillment. There's an equation. Alcohol is an external substance. It's something that that isn't. that isn't what humans were necessarily programmed to do. It's something that's been created. You know what I mean? And the amount of people that I see alcohol being a problem with that you've just described, whether it be in relationships with their partners, whether it be in work, as they kind of I want to switch off and get on the piss, and
Yeah.
it's right there in front of us. You don't have to look far
Sure.
to understand that it's a depressant, that it's going to make it worse.
Yep.
But
It's
like,
true.
it's like we've got this kind of the whole of humanity has this filter to it for some reason that it's almost kind of you see it on the TV and it's kind of, oh, let's go, and it's all get all these spirits and all this type of stuff, and it's kind of glamorized. Oh, we have this, we do this. But I think it's one of the biggest problems for humanity. It's probably the biggest drug for the whole of humanity when you think about it, because it's glamorized. But if you look at what it does to people, and just went back to the UK recently, and some of the people who I know, they might not think they've got a drinking problem, but they're drinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday every single week. They're smashing it, and it's almost like it puts a ceiling on them for their ambition, and
Yeah.
they're
Well
not
put.
they're not leaning into what they could be, and there's an
Yeah.
acceptance of, because what I do is I go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Usually they're going to be till Wednesday, not feeling so good. Then they're coming in and they're ready for Friday again. So they might have some real burning, beautiful kind of things that could, light them up, but add value to humanity. But it's like this invisible ceiling because the drinking culture blocks it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more. There's this magnet that my mom gave me, a fridge magnet, when I moved out. So you'll forgive me if I get the quote wrong because it's been a while since I've seen it. But when I was younger, anyway, she gave me this fridge magnet. It was a quote from, I think, George Bernard Shaw, the playwright, that says, "Life isn't about discovering yourself; it's about creating yourself." Um, which has come back to me multiple different times, but certainly I know for myself, and I would assume this is pretty much across the board, if you're drinking often, that is time that you are putting pause on creating yourself. You know?
That's really well put. It's like, because when you drink, most people become a persona that's not themselves. Usually, if I drink, my ego comes through. So, and
Totally.
if that ego is challenged with something, I've got no patience, and I'm gonna go rah. You know what I mean? Now, when I'm not drinking, I can receive the same information and I can receive it in a balanced way, and I can look at it and I can consider the other person. I can have empathy. When I'm drinking, I don't. My ego, I always say I've got £1,000 gorilla that'll come through and it'll be ready to go if the wrong thing is said.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I can have a great time. I can be merry and I can have fun and it can be all a laugh. But if it's not me, and that kind of fake confidence and all of those things that come through with it. So um, alcohol is, yeah, I think it's one of the biggest problems that we're not challenging. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Really.
totally. It's often very accepted as a means of just like having a good time, letting loose, and it's considered fine.
It's the first
Um,
thing. It's the first thing I ask somebody when they're going through the shit relationship, especially relationship. I say, "Are you
yeah.
drinking?" Yeah, we do this. Stop. Just stop. Give yourself a breather. Give the relationship an opportunity to talk to each other. Because I say to them, "When do you fall out?" Oh, we had a big fallout on Saturday. I say, "Were you drinking?" Yes. Okay. Well, fucking stop. Give yourself a shot.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not always that easy too. Like I think that, just to skip around a little, I guess, in terms of the whole journey part of it, like I did not think that I had a drinking problem back then when I was young. And they didn't connect the almost liver failure with drinking. I was young enough that I wasn't showing signs of being an alcoholic, at least not yet. What I was showing signs of was not sleeping because I wasn't. Um, but so I continued, right? So I continued, to use alcohol as a means to get done what I needed to get done. Meaning, if I was stressed out at the end of the day of work and I needed to unwind to go to bed, I would have beers. If I needed to stay up to uh, get music stuff done, I would have beers. So I'd have beers either way. Um, you know what I mean? And it's the first thing. It's what I did to celebrate. It's what I did when things went wrong. So really what I was doing was using drinking to manage my emotions and my stress 100% of the time. I mean, 100% of the time, like off as often as I could without life coming off the rails. But at no point did I think that I had a drinking problem or that I was an addict. Um, I tried to quit drinking post COVID. So I've had some success in being fully sober here and there throughout life, right? But always had the craving to drink and to go to drinking. I had to avoid bars and avoid it, whatever. During COVID, I met my now wife, so I'm remarried now. I suppose we could always go to the reason why my first marriage didn't work out if we need to, but I'm remarried now, and I met my current wife just before COVID. We isolated together as veritable strangers, had a grand old time, but both drank a lot. Right, got back to drinking, and I feel like a lot of people did drink. They either quit during COVID or they went bonkers. I was the latter. I went bonkers. We drank often, and tried to again though, like I still held down jobs, and generally it was not like in our heads it's like you're not an alcoholic unless you're homeless on the street or you're dying of cirrhosis of the liver, right? Other people we can judge and say that guy's probably an alcoholic, you know what I mean? But you never look at yourself and go, wait a second, am I an alcoholic? I still have a job. Am I an alcoholic? Is this ruining my life in some way? I was able to be sober for 8 months. I'm not an alcoholic, right? Like, so there's all this narrative. And I tried to quit in after my dad passed away. I was not okay. Like my drinking got darker. I started to get like mental health symptoms, like you were saying about sort of the anger and the rage. Yes, definitely I've yelled and screamed when I was drinking, but this was new. This was like I was blanking out and losing whole stretches of time, not realizing why I was where I was or whatever, right away from just having a couple of beers. So there was clearly something that it was unlocking after my dad passed away that was different and new and bad. And scared myself, scared my wife good as well. And it was like, this is effed up, right? So I decided, okay, I have to quit, and because things will come off the rails. I can't go to work if I have no idea what's going on, So tried to quit, and then would quit for a month, not have a drink, and then suddenly find myself drunk or hiding booze and not really remember when I went to the liquor store or why I wasn't telling my wife that I was drinking. Found myself, I've done drugs recreationally sort of in my life. I've never been like a daily drug user at all. But then I was like, occasionally, I'm like, where did I get X drug from or why? And why did I not tell anybody and not even really remember or whatever? And then be like, well, this is new. This is not it's not a fun thing you want to have new. And it was only when I truly tried to quit on my own. So I was like, okay, this is too effed up. So I did 12-step. I did 12-step program for recovery. I went to AA. I went to a few different kinds of 12-step programs. Got a home group, did the 12 steps, came out of it. And in doing the 12 steps, not that I'm saying that everybody has to do that to recover necessarily, but I'm glad that I did. Because I really realized that it's like the way that addiction is defined sort of surreptitiously in 12 steps, like not directly, because you can't hear it when you're an addict. No one can just say like, here's why you're an addict. And then you're like, oh yeah, cool, sweet. I'm cured. But surreptitiously what they're saying is that if you're using external substances of any kind to manage your emotional state, instead of dealing with your emotions or feeling your emotions, that's the core of addiction. And it was just kind of like, well, damn, that also means I'm a food addict. That also means I've been a sex addict a lot of times in my life. That also means, so I've been swapping addictions pretty freely. I'll be sober from beer, but then it's like, oh, okay, I'm a sex addict now, or I'm overeating or whatever. And I'm like, isn't that what people always say? I quit smoking, then I started eating like crazy, or, you're swapping out addictions, but you're not getting to the core of why are you seeking these external things in the first place? Why are you seeking? I started seeing it as these are means of soothing for me, right? So it's like, if I need a drink, it means I need soothing. Well, why the hell do I need soothing right now? What, investigating that, even a need for sex, a need for overeating, whatever, right? Like it's a need for soothing something inside. And that was a real big entry point to be like, well, crap, I constantly need soothing apparently, because there's different shit that is not even alcohol that I feel like I'm compelled to need to manage my emotional situation. and investigating that has been the single biggest light bulb in every aspect of my life. Every aspect of my
Wow.
life.
Yeah, and it's really really interesting there because a lot of people don't think about the sex addict thing, and I've never even thought about it about myself, you know, because I think most men when they're younger they kind of go through a period of, you know, you would say, you know, you say, oh, I'm just young and horny or whatever it is,
Yeah,
but you know when you're younger you your whole thing is about going out and having sex with another person, right?
sure,
And then
yeah,
it would be like, and then you'd be like, then it'd be about telling you know, telling your friends about it, and all of this type of stuff that coming on, and it's like, what am I seeking there?
yeah,
What is this? What is this thing that I'm seeking? And I think that's something that not a lot of people think about, to be honest with you, because it's a very taboo thing to talk about. So I'm glad you've brought that one up, and I haven't really spoken about that before. So I'm really interested in your thoughts on that aspect, and whether it be that drink, drugs, or whatever. It's like what I've found when, you know, I've basically cut out drink from my life. I didn't have a drinking problem. I was a social drinker. When I was younger, I did in the UK. When I say younger, I'd be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, partying, 2 day benders, do recreational stuff, and lose my mind. I was doing that looking back. I wasn't happy in the UK. I wasn't happy with my life. I just really wasn't happy. I need the sun, for example. Hence why I look like a tomato.
yeah. I think it's
It
great.
doesn't work. It doesn't work for me back there. And I always found I was kind of a bit miserable. I think, you know, they talk about that sad syndrome of winter
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff like that. That is a big thing for me looking back. And I had a lot of escapism there. Now I'm here and I've started helping men, and I've described before as a beautiful guy I'm really close with now who went from 0 to 100. You know, he had he was drinking 5 nights a week, taking drugs, this, that, and the other. And we worked together for a small period of time, and he just switched off, and he stopped everything. And I was watching how he was taking off, and he was off everything, and I was like, if he can do it, you know, and I was just drinking at the weekend socially, but like that Saturday came and I might only have, you know, 6, 7 pints or whatever, but I would you know, merry pissed, have a
yeah,
laugh, wouldn't necessarily do anything. And I thought, well, why do I have to do that? Like a Saturday comes and I do that. You know, I don't do what I used to do, so I've kind of given myself this green light that I'm not, you know, going bananas anymore. But still, why do I need that? Can't
yeah,
I enjoy this? I live in a beautiful place, my dream location, Sydney, this, that, and the other, with the beach. Isn't this enough? Aren't I enough? Why do I need this little thing over here? Can't I go for a meal without drinking? And it's something I'm actually still exploring now because, you know, when you do get married, you have that different energy and you're this, that, and you're a bit looser. And it's
yeah,
something I still haven't 100% got to grips with. I still haven't kind of found the actually, because sometimes I think, oh, well, it would take it up a notch, my experience, if I did have a few beers or something like that, you know what I mean? So
for sure.
it's something I haven't still mastered just yet. It's something exploring. But what it's made me do is do that internal look, is explore those little corners of me to say, what am I not doing? What am I not enough with? What do I perceive that is not enough here? And it's something that I'm really facing at the moment. So does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I think that was my experience of trying to cut down on drinking and quit drinking has always been like what you're saying, right? Except I came at it differently. I think I described the first times that I drank, I was against drinking and drug doing because of my grandfather was, you know, an alcoholic and so on. And I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna make it in music and writing and all this creative stuff, and I'm gonna do it sober because I don't want people to be like, oh, it's just the drugs or whatever, right? I didn't want to be questioned for my creative genius. You know what I mean? I wanted to do it all on my own. Um, but but then after when I had a couple of beers with my friends when we started playing shows and stuff and being in a band, what I found was I discovered my internal uh my internal experience totally shifted. So I had been living life one way, which is with a whole bunch of kaleidoscopic stuff going, my brain going, feelings, thoughts, blah blah blah, all this stuff just going. I had a couple of drinks and it stopped, and I could just pay attention, and I felt relaxed and I felt amazing. And that is how alcoholics are born, my friend. Like, right? I can look back on it and say now it's a miracle that I didn't drink every second of every day. But it became a tool for me very quickly of just managing. I was like, oh yeah, I have this secret potion that allows me to just focus and not be caught up with stress or anything else. And so I was using it especially in music. So I was at rehearsals, I was really, really productive. I had a few years where I was like writing great stuff, arranging great stuff, playing in multiple different bands, and doing all this while working and funding the stuff and playing a lot of shows. Like we had some good, really good indie successes that I was very proud. I am very proud of.
Amazing. Well done.
But I did it all while drinking to
Yeah.
keep focus. And now I realize that that's what an addiction is, right? Like that is what an addiction is it's requiring some sort of external substance. And I never really investigated that what I was doing was I was using an external substance to manage an internal situation, right? And that's where we start to get into dicey territory. And even with sex addiction, like you said before, it's like, am I a full-on sex addict? Was I ever a full-on sex addict? In other words, was I constantly seeking multiple different partners? No, I've been married twice. I didn't cheat on my wife of 10 years, right? But it doesn't mean I wasn't a sex addict, though. That doesn't mean I wasn't always trying to urgently have sex, or, you know what I mean? Like as often as possible or as much as possible, even if it's with one partner or if it's watching porn or whatever else, like just all this stuff in the absence, especially of alcohol. So like, it's another external means of managing an internal situation, distracting away from internal emotional situation. Does this mean that people should avoid having sex with their partners? Of course not. Like I don't think that sex is bad at all, but it's
No,
why,
no.
right? It's the why. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree. I just think it's, mine was, if I was looking back at me as a young lad in my 20s, whatever, when I wasn't in relationships, and early on, I was a bit of a rogue lad, I didn't really have that mentor around me like I would do now to a lad and say, no, hang on a minute, is this, because the thing that gets me, I asked the two questions now, and I got off a great guy who I actually had on the podcast, and it really landed with me, and it's like, are the actions I'm about to take or the words I'm about to speak intentionally going to cause harm to others? If you are going against the collective consciousness of humanity. Because
Sure. Yeah.
effectively, now when I was younger, you don't think like that. You don't give a
No.
shit. You're so selfish. You're just
Yeah.
about yourself. And the harm I would sometimes cause to women, because I wouldn't give a shit. I would just focus on myself, and whether that would be playing the field and not considering that other person and giving yourself an out where you would think like, well, I'm having sex with this person. This person growing feelings for me, but I'm telling them it doesn't matter because I haven't told them in a relationship with them, but they're gaining feelings for me. So, and I'm just going to fuck around and do the next thing. And this person is a human being who's got
Yeah.
feelings and is going to be brokenhearted by something that I'm doing. But I'm not looking at that. I don't want to look at that. I'm over here, but no one's told me to look at that, and I don't understand what that is. And it's like, as you kind of get older, you kind of go. So mine was more hopping around and almost it was an addiction, and it was like, and it was a validation as well.
Yeah.
It was a
Totally.
it was a validation thing, and to my mates to make me feel, oh, Willow does this, and and it was like getting the praise and stuff. But what the hell's going on inside of me that I need this? What the hell? And it's like, when you stop, you look, you reflect, it comes with age, or if somebody is going to mentor people, hence why good men, we should be able to help
Yeah.
other men, young men, understand these things so you don't harm others, you don't harm yourself, you get to yourself earlier, don't use
Yep.
external for the internal, as you just described beautifully. It's really made me look internally to see what the hell was going on there.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, right? It's not to say that going on dates with people, having them like you, having sex with them, and I'm not like this, like, religious guy who thinks people should pair off for the rest of their lives or anything like that either. Like, have multiple partners for sure, play the field, get to know each other, absolutely. But I think that doing it with some sort of relational awareness, that is integrated, right? And there's this great word that I got from my therapist, who I had for years, who really helped me put my head on straight, and also pointed a lot of great books out to me. One of them is from the Dr. Gabor Mate. I don't know if you know this guy. I think you know him
Yep.
as well. It's been brought up on the
Yep.
podcast. Talks about, even for drug addicts and stuff like that, that the goal is integration. And I love that. Because it was different for me. I always felt like people said the goal was, oh, you'll be happy, you'll have a happy life or whatever else. That's not really true though, right? And I mean, I don't think you want to be happy all the time. Like, you don't want, it's like, oh, my best friend's been killed in a car crash. Oh, but I'm happy all the time now. Like, you need to be appropriately emotional for whatever's going on in your life. You want to be able to have a full range of emotions in life. And I think that going for what he calls integration is that it's being really yourself, being really in yourself, being in your emotions, being able to feel them, having a high threshold or a high tolerance for feeling your own emotions, happy or sad or whatever. And having a bit of that relational awareness when you're getting with people. You're not just looking for one thing from them, right? And ignoring the rest. So if you're dating somebody, you're like, I'm just looking to get sex from this person because I think that they're hot and that's it. Versus there's a whole thing involved here. So it's like bringing all of yourself to the table in everything you do, which is a lifelong struggle. It's impossible to do all the time. But man, what a different way of approaching the world. Instead of, here I am trying to drink to be like, well, let me drown out all my thoughts so that I can do 2 more hours of mastering and then go to this job I hate.
Yeah.
What a great life.
Yeah, 100%. And if I look back on myself, I was just kind of reflecting there as you were talking. I think if I was to affect people, whether it be women in the past or in friendships or whatever, a lot of the time it was because I didn't want to upset the person, but by not having the discussion, I would upset them more because I wouldn't
Right.
step in. I wouldn't be courageous enough to step in and have that conversation to say, this isn't working for me and this is for why, and do it with a way of empathy and get through, because that's a big discussion. It's bravery
Yeah.
to
Yep.
stand there and have that. And I think, and again, some of the men that I'm working with now, I'm like, bloody hell, I'm impressed. And again, the one guy I'm talking about, I know he's come in and out of relationships and he set the tone on the way in. And when it hasn't worked, he's had that discussion on the way out. Now, don't get me wrong, the women won't like that, but at least he's honouring himself and honouring them and having that discussion early and being brave enough to have that. So
Yes.
things aren't left unknown and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people, and that I'm looking at myself in the mirror here, I wasn't brave enough to have those discussions. I shied away from them because I didn't want to upset people. And when we do that, number one, we don't honor ourselves, but we don't honor them. And we
Totally
cause
true.
more hate all round a lot of the time by not tackling that. It's that internal thing again, right? It's like, it's an internal thing. I'm going to run away. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go on the drink over there,
Yeah, totally. 100%. I think that like, I'm a born people pleaser in that way in relationships, and it eats away at you in a way that nobody taught me. It eats away at you. You know what I mean? And that kind of avoidance of conflict with people around you, like, it's just poison. Talk about things that sap you of your energy. It just keeps, by not doing it, it keeps running around inside of you and literally sapping your energy, and you end up collecting these little hamster wheels that are spinning, and like malware on your computer that's running in the background and just slowing your computer down. Your RAM is getting choked by all these malwares that you have. Every time you don't say the thing and you don't do the hard thing, there's this bloody malware in you that's like, choking your performance. And it's something that's something I learned from doing 12-step, from doing therapy. Like, I've tried different things, you know what I mean? But ultimately, I think that coming to have a routine that is a routine that involves a lot of exercise, which I did not have. I was not connected to myself in that way to realize that exercise was really benefiting me. It was getting in the way of my schedule, in my opinion, at the time. But now, you know what I mean? But now I get up at 4, like you're saying too. I get up at 4 every day. I work out every morning. I'm not drinking in the evening, so I don't have anything pressing to do. Right? I can go to bed early and get up at 4. But meditation is such a big one as well. And meditation, having a self-designed meditation routine that isn't just like, a lot of people talk to me about meditation, but it seems like kind of a perfunctory, go through the motions thing that's tailored by somebody else, that they're doing meditations because they want to focus better, or meditations that they want to like make more money at work or whatever. I just don't think that's how it works. Again, it's like using meditation for some sort of external solution to your internal thing. So I do think that meditations, because some people will say, "Oh, it's BS, didn't do anything for me," and I'm like, "But what are you talking? What are we talking about here? Like, what was your meditation routine? You know what I mean?" I think it's worth getting in the weeds with people sometimes on that.
Yeah, I think the meditation thing, it's a whole piece that um it's scientifically proven, you know what I mean, about
Yeah,
what it does in here. Even it's like I say to everybody, the amount of people say, because my brain, I say, is very active, right? And people will say to me, "Oh, my brain's so active, I shut my eyes, I can't think." I'm like, "That's meditation." And they got saying, "That's what it is. You're aware of the thoughts that it hasn't just started; it's always doing it. You're now aware of how it's operating, and over time, it's like going to the gym. If you want some biceps, day one, you're going to see nothing. Day 365, you're going to see something. And it's the same with meditation. I find I don't get these kumbaya moments. I just get that it improves my sleep, it improves my patience. I'm more regulated. I notice when I don't do it. It's one of those things, and I use it with my own app. I go, "Oh shit, I haven't done my meditation. Oh shit, I haven't done my volleyball. Or oh shit, you know," and it kind of pulls me back in place. So it brings us now. So again, very interesting life. I can see the traumas from your childhood. You just kind of motoring on through, kind of unaware. Then as you've got older, you've started to become aware through your own problems. Oh, this is all tied in. You can see the generational, trauma, the DNA being passed through to you from granddad, and all the stuff that's gone in. You've then become aware of all this stuff. You've had a really amazing at the age of 19, some experiences you had with radio host, band, producer, and all of this really successful stuff for somebody at 19 years of age to be able to do. Bring yourself almost to burnout, health issues by relying on the drink, and so on and so on. And you've brought yourself up to a really, sounds like a really well-rounded human being who's had a lot of pain and a lot of hit some dark moments there, and looking at your past to kind of say, "Hang on a minute, I don't want to go down this pathway," which that in itself is tells me you've got a high level of consciousness and emotional intelligence to be able to start trying to help yourself, as well as you touched on before, maybe you've had some external help as well. So in your work life, all of these experiences that you're talking about, you're now a recruiter. I'd be interested to see how all of these experiences through, going through the 12 steps, being recovering from, addiction, and all of this well-rounded stuff. How has this helped you in the workplace, in your work and life flow? What is it that you do? Because you're touching on a couple of things there, health and fitness, internal work, and stuff like that. But just tell me what you're doing today, and how you've translated all of that for you to operate as you are today.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for all the kind words. Yeah, it's been a journey. But and it's still a journey, right? It's just ever changing, and improving. There's one way of looking at this story, which is that I had a passion, and that was to be in the music business and do creative stuff, and then I failed at it, and then now I'm doing a day job. And I think that's how movies would narrativize it, and I think that's how, like, how the story usually is told. But really, I think that I was doing music, when I look back on it now, because I had access to gear and people who knew how to do music stuff. But I did it because it allowed me to have friendships. It allowed me to have a team of people, like you're saying, having a team, having a community, getting together with people, having a goal that you chase for together, that you try. And we failed at certain things, we succeeded at others. But like, to really try to do something with a group of people who are like-minded and who are going after something together, and going through it together, and that kind of feeling and relationship, and seeing, oh man, we got this guitar player in, he's wicked, or this violin player in for this other act, whatever, but it's just not right, it just didn't work out. And learning, what, just because they're good doesn't mean they're the right fit for this group of people, and so on and so forth. And honestly, I quit doing music when we got signed to a label which folded, because the whole music business as we knew it doesn't really exist anymore, right? And I tried to use a recruiter to get a job here in Toronto, moving from Montreal to Toronto, where I am now. And they asked me, they're like, "You ever thought of doing what I'm doing right now?" And I was like, no, I have not. It's never occurred to me once. And they ended up hiring me, and I loved it. I loved it. I don't like honestly, what I discovered is all the stuff that I learned from all that trying to have a record label and being in bands um, really brought me to this whole place of like getting teams of people together, getting the right people together, understanding what their ups and downs are, and how to diagnose like you're in the wrong environment, man. You just hate your job. You don't even realize, you can't even admit you hate your job. You should be doing this instead or whatever, and talk to people and give them that advice is a joy for me every single day.
I love that, and because society's got it wrong. We talk about failure. It can sound cheesy sometimes, but there's no failure in failure. There's only success if you look at it. There's a lesson in everything, and that's why I talk about the reason I call the podcast the Artistry of Humanity. That's why the overarching organization is the Artistry of Humanity, because the Artistry of Humanity is communication and experiences, and at every point in a conversation or an experience, we can like get off the bus and go, "What's going on here? Where's my
Yeah.
lesson?"
Yep.
Every single stop in a conversation or an experience in your life, there's a lesson in there. And if you understand that lesson, that's success.
Yes.
So there's no
Well put.
failure. For a 19-year-old to have done what you've done is so successful. I was still being a dick, partying and worried about where I'm going on my next holiday, drinking like obviously we all drink it, but I had no ambition right then. I was just getting a paycheck. I didn't have any drive. My drive came to do things probably in my 30s, where I really kicked into my career and stuff. So massive kudos for that. And as you said, I think it's not about an industry. It's not about a thing. It's about the experiences and the lessons that take you to the next phase of your life, whatever it is. I was 25, 26 years in corporate logistics. I used to run a large global organization for Australia and New Zealand over here. And then I ran an external company. I ran they started up three successful businesses. Nothing to do with logistics, but I had all these experiences, good,
Yeah.
bad, ugly, and when I went here, I've just utilized them for this. And I think people get tied up, and especially in careers, I work in this career and I have to do this, and I stay in this box. No, you fucking don't.
Yeah. That's
Look
well
at
put,
back.
man.
Look at all the experiences and bloody, knowledge you've gained from those successful failures that you've had.
Yeah, and I think it's like if I could give advice to my younger self, or I guess for anybody who's going through it, it's to give yourself the permission to try to do stuff, right? And actually try to do it, and like instead of thinking, nah, I can't do that, it's not going to work out. To your point, society is really geared to tell you the message of like you should only do things that are going to be stable and make you sensible cash and stick with them forever and whatever, or it's you follow your crazy dream and you have to be an artist or whatever. It's kind of like the binary, right? But but to your point, both of those are wrong. Right? Like it's
Yeah.
just actually trying to do stuff and then learning, creating yourself, right? Not discovering yourself, but you're creating who you are as a person by having all those ups and downs, and then trying to make something of that and learn from it and have a new jumping off point for the next project in life that is more you, and then also have risks in that project that challenge you and so on. It's just not something that was on my radar at all. But really, I couldn't say that I don't regret a thing. I don't regret a thing. I'm thrilled with the way that life has turned out for me, and with what I mean. Not making it in music was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I probably would have gone deeper into the drinking and drugs thing and be dead right now if I'm honest. It was
So
such a part of my routine.
such a successful failure, so successful for you. And if
Yeah.
we loop back to energy, right? And we spoke at the beginning about what things that give you energy and stuff. I think, and again, I always say too many people think things are woo woo, but we are just, what are we? We're just energy at our
Yeah.
core, right? We're just a ball of energy, and I think that's your internal compass. And I said, as you're moving through the gears, you're moving through life, the more you come aware, like as I said to you, I wish I would have had a mentor when I was younger to bring me. Where would I be right now? I don't give a shit because I'm here. I might
Exactly,
necessarily
man.
have needed to be my path. It's kind of paradoxical, right? But I just think your internal compass is your energy. If I'm around dickheads, I feel it in here. I'm like, oh, And
Totally.
I've been in corporate environments. I remember I moved from one job to another, and I remember sitting there in week two in a boardroom going, "Oh God, this guy's an arsehole. He's going to be a
Yeah.
real problem. He's real not a good human being. I'm not going to be able to last here for very long because this is really going against my moral compass." And you get energy by people, and I think it's the same with when you're leaning into something that you're passionate about. When you get that flow state, people talk flow state, it's just
Yep.
being energized by something. And I think that's what I would advise people to do, is just keep an eye on your energy. When does it feel ugh, yuck? Well, that's not maybe your path, or there's a boundary being crossed here, and I need to have a discussion about this. Because going back to what you said before, within a loving relationship, it's the same with any business relationship. If you're sitting in here and you kind of go, "I'm keeping my mouth shut here in fear," or "I'm wearing a mask because of," you can't do that for too long. You're the person who's going to get affected. Your energy is going to be depleted, and they're the things that lead to burnout. You can have two jobs side by side. One job, you've got a great bang of people around you. It's the exact same industry, going for the exact same goals. You've got these people you get energized by, you're on the same wavelength, same frequency, and you can come in and do 60 hours a week in that job, but be happy as Larry. You could
Yep.
do 40 hours in this job and get burnout
A
because your
100%.
energy your energy gets depleted by these negative, toxic people who might, for example, not understand about workplace well-being, might not understand about trying to, create a great culture and listen to the people within their teams. This one and this one, same thing, longer hours, happy as Larry. This one, painful. You're going to go off the edge of a cliff. And I think that's your internal compass. My advice to people would be in those situations is listen to your energy, feel what feels right. And you are the creator of your journey. So you're the only person who's going to be able to get yourself in, out, duck, dive. And somebody like you who's done what you've done in all this eclectic stuff and never been afraid to take that leap, I think is a good example of the thing that we should be leaning into sometimes.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. And you were saying about if you had a mentor. Interestingly, your path might be to be somebody who did not have that mentor growing up, and going through what you've gone through has brought you to become the person to be the mentor that you are today for other people. You know what I mean? Zooming out to that bigger picture. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love the artistry of humanity idea. I think it's amazing, and I think it is lacking in the conversation out there. Everybody thinks that getting more money or being able to work remotely or whatever else in my world is what's going to fix all their problems. But again, they're looking for external solutions to internal problems. I wish that you could be there telling people, hey, think about how the people you're working with are making you feel. Because everyone's like, nah, all agencies are the same. I just want a better commission plan, or I just need $5,000 more on the base, or I just need it to be closer to my home. Like all these like external things. I'm not thinking about who are these people I'm going to be working with every single day and spending all this time with. And I mean, it's a joy to be part of it. One of my favorite parts of what I do now is I have a podcast of my own called Recruiting EQ, which again focuses on exactly that, trying to focus on the human element, the emotional quotient of what it is to have a job and work with other people. Like this crazy idea, like what is a job even really? It's a bunch of, what's a company? It's a bunch of people who show up every day and talk about a united thing, right? Like, so looking at it from the human element is part of the joy of what I get to do. And I love that you're out there doing this too. I love helping good men
Yeah.
is so needed out there right now. It's a bit of a
No,
it's a bit of a tough time.
yeah, spot on. And I think, as you said, we have the corporate side of the business at Artistry of Humanity as men. We will be women that we'll be moving into next year. That'll be headed up by the feminine, by my partner, Katya. And ultimately, we'll get through to children as well. That's why it's the Artistry of Humanity, because at its core essence, it's the same for all of us, right? And
Yeah,
and I think in that work environment, I love what you're doing there as well, because you touched on it. People, you know, shooting for the dollar, shoot for the people, you'll get the dollar more.
a 100%.
Aim, focus here. And there's a couple of people I'm coaching at the moment, and they work with this organization, and they're gonna leave. They're gonna leave because there's the person at the top, the CEO. They have a great, they've got a great pipeline of business that's coming in. financially, it's doing okay, but they've got a turnover of people. And the person at the top just isn't focusing on the people, and it's so like simple. They were telling me something the other day, one of them, and I'm like, and all I'm doing is I'm coaching them to understand themselves, and they're starting to realize, okay, I might need to make a move here because fucking hell, what's going on, And the senior people, and they just this CEO is just shooting for the dollars, and they had a team get together. And all the team were excited about this new idea. So the team, underneath these senior execs, had brought this kind of idea together. And on the open call, the CEO just shot it down. So they've all cut this idea, brought it together. They're going to do this thing. They're all excited coming on. And the CEO, even if for whatever reason, they didn't want to go down that path, you would take a different approach. They just like literally go, no, that's not happening. Da, 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 da. They all come away deflated. The people, the two executives who brought this with them, they're all deflated. I'm just thinking, EQ.
Yeah.
What the hell? And I'm like, how are some of these, senior people not understanding? And it's like, it's like, if they were open to discovering some simple blind sides, just be open that you don't have to know. I don't know everything. I've got blind sides. I'd be open for Rick to tell me, hey, I've seen a couple of things. I'd say, thank you, brother. And I might have seen a few things in you because I want to grow. I'm not, exactly. My ego isn't, big enough, especially if I don't drink. My ego, I can receive feedback. I want to receive feedback. And I just think there's a lot of people at the top. It's like, have you got anybody giving you blindside information? Have you been told by anybody in the last 12 months something that maybe we could have done a little bit differently? If you haven't, you're in an echo chamber. If you haven't, you've got a problem. Your business has got a problem because you aren't getting the balanced view. Because all of us have blind sides. We are perfectly imperfect. And I think there's some simple things there. And that's why I love what you're doing is people in these positions aren't using the emotional intelligence enough sometimes. And I think there's some real quick wins that companies can have by being open.
Totally. I think that, you said it, like the echo chamber thing, right? Like our phones are echo chambers. So I think it gets worse the higher up you go in terms of success. But I think that it's a culture right now that's based on individualism, where everything on your phone is being suggested to you because it's something, it's like a sycophant, right? And that gets worse with AI. That's always telling you you're right. That's always affirming everything. But you can't be in a company. You're not going to be happy being an island, right? Like it's about collaboration. It's about community. That is the key. That is the big secret to happiness and success and fulfillment and all that stuff. But unfortunately, culture has gone so far in the other direction that we're all pretty messed up. We're all pretty messed up.
I'll put it down. I'll ask your opinion just before we wrap up on that aspect. I put it down to, I think most people, I always say most people are wearing a mask for whoever they're interacting with. And I think in the corporate environment, in business, it's like times 10 within your daily interaction. And you mentioned something there which kind of resonated with me. The higher up people go, the more people underneath them are wearing a mask because they don't want to upset you. They want to have job security. They want to get promoted by you. They want to do this. So it's on those senior people to say, is anybody actually speaking to 100% real? Or am I giving off an energy where everybody has to wear a mask? Because I know I would have done that in the past.
Sure.
Through my career, early career as a leader, I'm moving and shaking. Again, you sometimes don't have the time to give to people, so things have got to be fast. Right? And like people are like, I haven't even got time to get into those meaty conversations. But as a leader, you've got to at some point foster time to get to know those people, to make them feel safe to drop the mask, to then engage to you. Because how else are you going to identify the problems within the company or the opportunities within the company? Because people will wear a mask and they don't want to give you all the real stuff. So that would be my take. And is that something you experience? And what would your take be on maybe? With the work that you do, what would you say would be the biggest opportunity for businesses to improve culture and improve, the business?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's very hard for me to answer that question briefly right now, just because things are so in flux. Like, the thing that would help a small company that started up 5 years ago is so different from a juggernaut of a company that's been around for 20 years. Especially COVID is a marker where things change drastically in the workplace. But I would go a step further in what you're saying, as far as people wearing masks. More people around you wear masks, the higher up you go. I would go so far as to say that I think that in the traditional workforce, where we're talking about bigger companies, not like some small new startups here, I think that's the goal. I think, unfortunately, that's the goal that people have set for themselves. I notice that people are frontline, right? They think that means success. I think we've got our heads on backwards in this thing, where we think that success means that there's a layer between you and the front line, and there's more layers between you and real connection and being the front line, the more successful you are. And we don't seem to think that that's going to change who we are as people, or stunt our growth as people, or stunt our performance. We think that that just means I've moved up in life. I have layers and layers away from, I don't have to deal with people as much anymore now that I'm at the top. And I think it's backwards. I think we're seeing the edges are fraying. And I do think that just that simple idea of being like, why are we trying to get away from dealing with other people, when truly a company is like a band, a musical band or whatever else? It's a collaboration. If you're not collaborating with people, you're also not that useful to the company. I got to tell you, you can be replaced too. So it's just all, yeah. I feel like if people get that perspective right, that staying connected and collaborating with people and open, and not seeking to get barriers and layers away from other humans, that they're their coworkers and whatever else, I think that that's already a big win.
Beautifully said. And just one final thing to finish up on. What advice would you give to any struggling men out there today? Any from your lessons?
Yeah, number one advice is, I mean, you said it really well, and you said it in the podcast as well, right? Vulnerability is a superpower. I think that when you are vulnerable is when people fall in love with you too. You know, even from a friendship perspective, it's when they really get to know you. It's such a misnomer that keeping your feelings down makes you look strong. I don't think it does anymore. I think even socially, people can tell, they just stop talking to you. Right. So you get isolated. So yeah, it's like, open up, seek help. If you're struggling with something, seek help. Or even if things just aren't aligning and you don't know why, seek help. Right. You might not even realize you need to seek help, but also seek help to communicate.
No.
Find someone you trust, communicate with them.
No, good on you. Couldn't agree more. All right, mate. That was a great conversation. I definitely think we could have further conversations and continue down many different avenues. Using the artistry of humanity kind of thing. We could literally spend 10 hours here. So, really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ian. Thanks for having me on this. I really appreciate it, and I do really respect what you do, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate.
Take care.